Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today this morning for this Father Fest conference. I would like to tell you about Fodata. Fodata is a clothing line that celebrates, promotes, and supports great dads. Fodata is so much more than a clothing line. It is a social innovation at its best. Every purchase for Fodata products helps the brand. Um, it helps to support great dads and funding for programs that offer free support for dads and their families. Fordata has started in May of 2012 with the mission of using a tangible good to carry a powerful message and fuel a movement. Today, Fordata has been able to reach dads in 22 countries and put on free programs for thousands across the globe. Today, our keynote speaker this morning is Barzi, founder of Fordata.
Good morning, good afternoon, good noon from somewhat gloomy Southern California. I'm so very happy to be with you today. And before we get started, I just wanted to give a anecdotal story that I think really is at the crux of what we're talking about here today, and really at the what was the impetus for the journey that I've been on for almost 10 years, which is kind of odd to think that it's been almost 10 years. The image that you see right now is the image of a locomotive wheel, this giant beast. The story goes that it was in the mid 1800s, and a young engineer was standing on a platform in a train station in Europe, and as he was waiting for his train to arrive, he was observing the other trains, and he noticed, wow, these amazingly heavy machines, and how much energy it takes for them to get from where they're standing right now still to going down the railway, and just in awe of how much power and how much work that would take. And as he was thinking that, one of the engines began to move, and he again observed the amazing power being put into those wheels, and moving it from static friction to kinetic friction, and going down the railway and working its way down to the path that it was going. And as he was doing that, he immediately came to another realization, one that he had not thought about before, which was, as much as energy it takes for this behemoth to move down this railway, there is tremendous energy when it is stopped, or when it tries to stop. And that accumulation of that energy was unrealized, and it is not something that's thought of or talked about. And that's really what we're talking about here today, is that for me, and for a lot of you, and for a lot of the communities that are supporting this mission, we are now just coming to the realization that there was so much more on the table. There was so much more that we could look at, and we just needed to change the perspective. We need to think about things differently, and not just see, oh yes, we need energy to get the train going down the railway, but there's so much more in that. There's so much more that is being unrealized and underleveraged, and we really need to look at, how do we squeeze more out of this? And I think we've done a really good job as a community and as an environment to come closer, but there's so much more work to be done. And that's really where this whole journey for me began, as I mentioned before. And Brandon did a wonderful job of introducing me. Thank you so much for that. My name is Bobby Barzi. First and foremost, I'm a human being that is looking to evolve and continue to progress and grow. I'm a father, and I am the founder of Fodata, as Brandon mentioned. Fodata stands for dads. My oldest son, which is pictured here, he would come to me when he was just learning how to speak, and would bring me stuff and say, Fodata. And when I realized that I really wanted to start this journey and start this organization, I sat him down. He was 3 years old, and I said, Pierce, Daddy's going to do this thing. What should we call it? And his first words were, let's call it Fodata, which at 3 years old, I said, okay, here we go. And he certainly reminds me of that, and he believes he's the chairman of the board. But that's how it all began. And you know, my boys, Lucifer and Mephistopheles, or otherwise known as Pierce and Royce, have been at the center of this, and have been the really the driving force. And when I became a dad, I realized, just like some of the wonderful speakers that spoke today, is that there was so much more. There was so much more to the experience than I thought and I believed. And society has really dictated to me on what it's supposed to be. And I said, you know what? I need to do something about this. So I'll take you through a quick background of how we started and where we are. And I said to myself, I need to do something. And what I wanted to do was the same concept of, hey, let's take whatever else is not being realized, whatever else is not being recognized and under leveraged and underutilized, and see if we can do something about it. And really, the reason for that was I wanted to leave a legacy for my boys, for my kids, to say, hey, dad wanted to follow his passion. He did something about it. He took a risk and he did something about that. And I also wanted to show him that it's okay to start a business to put food on the table. But what if you did that for the reason of helping others and for positive impact, and doing something where you're super passionate about and you care about the end results, and which is a wonderful thing, as I'm doing today with you all, is we were able to blur those lines of my personal life and my work life. My personal and work life are the same thing. As we were going through the rehearsals this morning, my kids are running around the background getting ready for school. So this is a wonderful show of what that commitment 10 years ago has meant to me today. And I'm smiling right now thinking, this is my work. This is my life's work. And I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of you guys for being part of it with me. So we began this journey 10 years ago, and I thought, well, I want to reach out to people and I want to let them know about this, but how do I do that? How do I let them know that, hey, when I spend time with my kids, we learn together and we have fun? And how do we take this triangle and we make it something where we're really trying to push this concept, or really bring it to the forefront of discussion and putting a showcase on it rather than being something that's in the background? And as most everyone, I'm sure, on this conference is wearing clothes, our thought was that if we were to if we're able to produce quality clothing, it's amazing to think that actually clothing is the closest thing to you, more than your loved ones. It touches you all day long. So if I can give you a piece of clothing that is high quality and it touches you and it gives you a sentiment and a feeling, and if we were to infuse that with a message or an opportunity for dialogue and perspective change, then it could be incredibly powerful. So that's how we began, is to say, hey, let's reach out to people and say, I'm going to give you something that you already have a bucket for, you spend money on, but I'm going to give you something more and give you a chance to connect to a message and a concept, an idea, and use it how you wish. And that's where we started. And the designs that you see for our gear are retail centric, meaning that anyone could wear them, but they come with a meaning. For instance, the top left corner has an image of an oak tree. An oak tree is actually one of the oldest symbols of fatherhood. It's strong, it has deep roots, and provides shade and protection. So having an image like that on the shirt, it brings about an opportunity to engage people and say, hey, you keep wearing that shirt. What is it all about? And then you can tell your story the way you want. So it provides a platform for you to not only think about, but also be able to engage people. The middle image is of a local artist rendition of crowns. And it was really around the concept of a dad has an opportunity to be almost a king, to be a benevolent, giving, nurturing king, or can be a suppressing and oppressing king. So you have a decision to make. Every one of these and everything that we do stands behind some concept that is supportive of what we stand for and what the inception of our organization was. And when we started, we had some wonderful backing and support, and we got a lot of celebrities and athletes that jumped on the bandwagon and supporting us. But at the core of what we do was what we wanted to do with the notoriety and the funds that were coming in, and that's where the programming came in, and we wanted to make sure that we really pushed on that front. So we started putting on free programs, as Brandon said, around the globe, all free. They were paid for by the sale of the clothing line. And all they did was really support that concept of spend time together, learn and have fun. Spend time together, learn and have fun, whatever that might be in your community, whether it's learning to program a robot, to go on a hike, to go to a museum together, to learn style hair, make cookies, whatever that was. We wanted to be supportive of that. Some of the other programs that then we were to expand into where we saw needs is we work with some incarcerated dads and connecting them to their children virtually and remotely, and doing some of the same programs that we talked about to then get them closer and to get them to have more dialogue and to really serve as the mentor that they can and should be. Another program that we fund is an empowerment program that we put on around the globe for women. Believe it or not, as an organization that is about supporting fatherhood, we thought it was important enough to give dads a platform to support the empowerment of the amazing women in their lives and to be an example for their children, to show that it is important to stand for the empowerment of others. A program that we launched a few years ago that's been tremendously successful is to how do we broach the subject of mental health in a manner that is more approachable for fathers. So we completely flipped the narrative of mental health and made it into mental fitness, because we thought if someone comes to you and says, hey, did you go to the gym today? Or I went to the gym today. They say, fantastic, good for you. But if you say to someone, hey, I spoke to my therapist or I did something for my mental health, their first thought is, what's wrong? What's going on with you? And we don't realize that the thing between our ears controls everything we do and controls how we approach everything in our lives. So we wanted to make that something that was a lot more approachable, a lot more positive, and something that allowed men to be conduits of this positive message to their kids. So all this information is on our website, so you can find out about our programs and some of the things that we do. But just to show you a breadth of what we've been involved with over the last 10 years, another one that we're very passionate about is the Red Beanie Bond, funding free red beanies for the American Heart Association. They go into their partner hospitals to really elevate the conversation around heart health, which is unfortunately the #1 killer in the world and takes away so many dads from families. So it's one of the things that we do. And as Brandon mentioned, so far we've been incredibly blessed to put on these programs in 22 countries, and a variety of locations around the U.S., all again free, paid for by the sale of our clothing line, and attended by over 30,000, which is remarkable for us. But what does that all mean? And really, what I wanted to share with you all today, in this discussion, and those of you who have been so committed to this path of fatherhood and really understanding, I wanted to touch on a few anecdotal points that, we talk to thousands of dads, and we have had the opportunity to really engage so many different communities. And what we see today as being some of the probably the most important themes that are coming up, and things that we see as opportunities for us in the roles of dads, or for those that are in the fatherhood position, to really engage and to really be able to then leverage for doing something positive or doing something about. And the first one I wanted to talk about was this concept of selfish versus selfless. I think we're raised to believe that once you become a father or parent, it's about being selfless. It's about giving as much as you can. It's about considering that you no longer are the priority, and that you need to sacrifice. And those are the terms that are being used. And the word selfish generally is seen as a negative and a dirty word. And we really combat that idea, and really go on the concept that, which most of you are pretty well aware of, is when you board the flight, the first thing they say to you is that in case of a pressure change, the oxygen masks are going to drop, and you need to put yours on first before you help anybody else. And there's a very, very good reason for that. If you don't take care of yourself, you're unable to tend to the needs of others, or you're unable to tend to the needs of others as best as possible. So it is so important in our communities of dads for us to be able to push this narrative and conversation around take care of yourself, so you can be better for you, so you can be better for others. And it's very important for us to push on this idea to the point that we actually came up with this concept of gratification and gratitude. Gratification being that if you help someone and you do something for somebody else, you feel the sense of I did something and I that makes me feel good selfishly. I'm glad that I did it. And as opposed to someone giving to you and receiving someone's assistance, and the gratitude that you feel for that, and to have either side be the dominating part of your life, it throws off this balance. But when you have this cross intersection of both of them, you reach what we call the optimal utility. Is that you have to have this balance. You have to be selfish enough to receive what's out there and to help yourself in order to then be able to give. And that cycle then feeds itself to provide you with that optimal utility. And I think this is a big concept that today is incredibly important to push in our communities and our neighborhoods to ensure that we're taking care of ourselves first. The second one that we really see as something that's, again, societally has been pushed into us is this the concept of direction and path, and how it is one dimensional. And most of the things that we're going to talk about and really push the dialogue around is we've been raised and we've been really pushed to think a certain way, and it's good for us to look at those things, say, why is it that I look that way, or why is it that I look in this direction? And I've been lucky enough to speak to a lot of different MBA programs at universities around the states, and one of the slides that I showed the MBA students is this, and my question to them is, what's wrong with this map, right? And very smart, bright individuals, they raise their hands and they say it's upside down. And obviously the reality, as we all know, is actually there's nothing wrong with this map. It's exactly as it should be. There's no up or down in the globe. We've just been fed information in a certain way for as long as we can remember. So immediately our thought is that there's something wrong, rather than saying they're exactly as they need to be. There's nothing different. There's no top or bottom of this thing. So just a very, very simple illustration of how that information and how we need to question some things that we are just automatically taught to believe, and why we should always question and say, is there a different way of thinking about something? And some of you may have seen this movie called Free Solo, which is about this free climber, incredible free climber who ascends peaks around the globe without any rope or any sort of protection. He basically goes up as Spider-Man would, but without any of the Spider-Man skills. And this movie is really about his ascent on El Capitan, which is the face of a mountain in Yellowstone. I'm sorry, Yosemite, and it chronicles that. But the interesting thing is that he talks about his preparation, what he needs to do. And this one I use actually in the business community, and it talks about, and you see these pictures, it actually gives me anxiety just looking at him. You see him climbing this incredible face without any harness or any rope that's holding him in place, which is unbelievable. But he takes a great deal of time to prepare himself. And what I show the business community is this chart, actually without the background. And I say, you as a business person, you as a CEO, you as a business leader, if you were to see a chart like this, what would you think about this company's performance? They would say, as you would suspect, like, well, the company did really well in this one area, and then something happened, and they went through a downturn, and they had to make some changes, and then they righted the ship, and they were able to do well. But as we know from not only the movie but in life, is that just because you traverse, just because you change direction and go a different direction, just because you don't go A to B, does not mean that you're failing, does not mean that you're looking at things and are unable to process them or do something that is in the right direction. We need to rethink direction. We need to purpose that dialogue that really puts so much burden and so much pressure on someone thinking, if I'm not going straight to the top, then I'm doing something wrong. Case in point being that if this climber would have gone straight up, he would have fallen to his death. But he chose the path that was best for him and allowed him the best option for going the path and having the progress that he needed. And it's a very, very important point that happens in fatherhood these days is, we have so much pressure on us and we think that we have to follow a certain way rather than what works best for us. Influence, I don't have to say too much around how that is a driver in conversation today, how that driver in the world around us today. But I think where we sometimes may not see the complete opportunity is that we are at the center of an opportunity to be the drivers of conversation, not only in our communities as dads and as parents, but also with our children. If I show you this image here right now, some of you who are into chemistry, you may recognize this, but this is the chemical composition of ibuprofen. And the reason why I show this image to folks is we as a society have come to a point where we are very symptomatic, meaning if my knee hurts and I have some pain of some sorts, we say, take some ibuprofen, right? And that's our immediate reaction to it. And what we try and talk about and what we try and really push is we need to have in parallel to dealing with the symptomatic is we really need to have a preventative lens and say, let's go back and say what it is that's causing that knee pain rather than let's just deal with what's happening right now. We've become a society of I need to just show you that I'm doing something about this rather than I need to have a plan that really deals with the preventative as well as a symptomatic. And a good point that I talk to my kids about is the reason why this is so important is today in the society that we're in, we're about calling people out and telling how wrong they are. If someone were to come up to you and say, you're stupid because of the way you think, most of us, it would take a very strong person. Most of us, our immediate reaction is a very defensive and counter argumentative to that point, rather than listening to saying, tell me why you think a certain way. Why is it that you feel this way? Why is it that you have this opinion? To understand that, because what we will learn is that there's so much more commonality. And if we don't have this understanding of we have to open dialogue, or we have to teach our kids and ourselves to show as examples that we're open to understanding better, is where we're in this cancel culture, which is, hey, if you don't like something, just don't look at it. Just don't talk about it. Just don't do anything about it. Rather than if I don't, then the chasm between us and somebody else or societies or cultures or communities is just going to grow larger, rather than saying, how do we understand each other better? And I think that's a tremendous opportunity for dads today, is to take the lead in saying, I'm going to have dialogue with my kids and let them understand that the importance of really processing prior to reacting, prior to just canceling, and how important that is not only for us but also the future generations that are coming into this world. Success. A quick story, anecdotal story for you guys. Just bear with me. There are two buckets, and these two buckets live in a village. And their job is basically to be filled with water and support a family. And every day, a little boy would take them to the creek down the way and fill them up as much as he could and come back. And throughout the years, one of the buckets started to rust at the bottom and developed a leak. And as the years progressed, the water amount in the bucket that was rusty and leaking would be less than the other one. And this really started to affect the bucket that was leaking, and really made him feel as if that he's not providing what he needed to, and feel embarrassed. Well, as the boy got bigger and the rust continued and the leak got larger, it got to the point where the bucket was, you know, half or a quarter full by the time the boy got back to his village. And this was such a big burden on that one bucket that at some point he turned to the other one. Yes, the buckets spoke to each other. He turned to the other one and said, "Listen, this is ridiculous. Like I'm not useful, and I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done." And to which the other bucket said, "Well, tell you what, I understand. Uh, why don't you give me one more day? Why don't you give me one more day, and we can have that be it if you wanted to. But I would love for you to do one more day." He says, "You know what? I've been doing it for years. Let's do one more day." So the boy at this point, a young man, grabs the buckets, goes down to the creek, fills the buckets up, and starts walking back. And at this point, the water's coming out. Right? It's not a it's obvious, right? And this makes the bucket with the leak incredibly upset. And he turns to the other bucket and said, I have no idea why you made me do this. This is again embarrassing, and I don't want to do this ever again. And he says, okay, I want you to do me a favor. Look at my side of the road, right? And look at your side of the road. And as he looks, he sees that, wow, his side is filled with flowers, gorgeous. And it's made the landscape of that walk and that village beautiful. And I think it's just an interesting concept to think about is we are so determined on a single dimensionality of success that we push to our kids, that we push to our communities, we push on ourselves, that we forget that we can have so much more impact in what's happening around us. And it's so important that at a young age, we really instill this idea of there's no one way. There's not one definition of success, and that we need to lift those incredible weights off ourselves and our kids and saying there's only one way to do this. So that's the story of the buckets. And really why I share this is that we're living in a society that is lives on these pillars of, you know, it has to be predefined, it has to be A to B, you know, everything is like that. And if you deviate from this this predefined understanding of what fatherhood is supposed to be and what life is supposed to be and what success is supposed to be, you know, what your direction or path is supposed to be, then you're an outcast, or you're thought of as someone who's against the grain and you know, not going with the herd. And the reason why I share this with you is as you saw in one of the earlier slides, we're very, very keen on making sure that we use symbolism and design through our company's gear to get conversation going, to incept dialogue, to help with perspective change. And every Father's Day, we try and come up with a new concept that we think is very relevant. And for us this year, this was such a big part of this conversation that that we came up with a concept that we're very, very excited about. And I'm actually wearing the shirt today that you guys see for a second. But our concept this year is what we call the sphere. And you can see one of the first ones that it's coming off the line. They'll be available next week. But it's really about this. You know, we were raised to think you go down a certain path. You have to do well in school. You have to study hard. You have to try and get into some sort of a post high school institution. You got to do hard work there. You got a great job. You got to go find a family, or you find someone and then start a family and continue that. But do everything that's been lined up for you. And what we really think that needs to happen, especially in the dynamic that we have today in the world, is we got to look at things as more of a sphere. And the reason why the sphere is such a special shape is that it has no beginning and no end. There is no specific entry or exit point. There's no up or down or sideways. You create an environment that you're comfortable with and you can roam freely within it. And those are wonderful ideas to think about when we think about our roles as dads, and we think about our roles as humans. We think about the opportunities that we try to provide to our children, the way they should look at the world and their opportunities. It's just a different way that we think that it's interesting to think about. It's interesting to introduce into your life, and it's important to shift the dialogue and again the one dimensionality of how we see things and say, is there a different way to look at these things? And that's really what it's about. And that's really what we try and do. What we stand for is this this promotion, as Brandon said to me, and promotion and really support of what we believe the opportunity, not just the responsibility of fatherhood is. And I will share with you one thing that I think really talks to where we're at today is to recognize and appreciate the opportunity. And again, not just the responsibility. The opportunity is so important and so overlooked. It is part of your evolution as an individual and not just a parent. And I think that's really, again, separating just being a dad and just being a parent, and saying, I have to work on myself as an individual, and I have to see this as an opportunity, not just something I have to do. So with that, I thank you all for spending your morning or early afternoon with me. It is a pleasure. It is so wonderful to be part of this community and see it grow over the last 10 years. And I applaud you for taking the time, putting in the energy, and I would love to work with you and hopefully do more things in the future. So again, thank you for your time, and that's it.